In this lesson, we'll take just a moment to answer some important questions about graphic design. Alright, before we get started, I'd just like to let you know that Digital Tutors would like to say thank you to iStock Photo and the artists Pipo, Alvarez, Garinmi, and FMNG for their images that were used in this series of lessons. You can access these same images and thousands of others by accessing your exclusive Digital Tutors iStock discount at the following site. Alright, so being that this is the first lesson in this course, I thought it would be fitting to sort of take just a few moments to sort of demystify the words graphic design and really help you gain a better understanding of exactly what those words mean. So let's just go ahead and present this in sort of a conversational format. So the first question that I think obviously needs to be answered is, what exactly is graphic design? So a lot of people think that they know exactly what this is, but when interviewing people who aren't designers, rarely will you find two answers that are exactly the same. So coming from a designer, I would like to go ahead and just clear the air up right now and tell you exactly what graphic design is. So first of all, graphic design can be used as both a verb and a noun, but ultimately graphic design is all about visual communication. We are communicating an idea or a message about something to someone. And it's about effectively communicating that message. So not only is graphic design visual communication, but graphic design oftentimes is a solution to a very specific problem. So with that said, what exactly does graphic design do? Let's go ahead and move on. Well, graphic design can actually do quite a few things. So I've gone ahead and got a list here of things that we can talk about, but graphic design often can stimulate an audience. It can inform them, giving them information. It can persuade an audience. If you visit a grocery store, every product on the shelves is designed to persuade you to buy it. All the great packaging you see, each one of those packages has been touched in some form or fashion by a designer trying to persuade you to buy that product. Graphic design oftentimes can organize. If you think of all the information that one might find inside a textbook or even a catalog or in some form or fashion, all that information has been organized by a designer so that you can easily navigate that information. So graphic design can also locate or help you to locate something. If you think of the drive to work you take every day, that may be a pretty natural trip to you, but the very first time you took it, you probably paid quite a bit of attention to street signs. So graphic design can help you navigate and locate things. Graphic design can also identify things for you. Moving on, we've got graphic design also has the ability to attract attention, to gain your attention as the audience of that designer. Lastly, graphic design can also provide pleasure to its intended audience as well. Now, like I said just a moment ago, these are just a few of the things that graphic design can do, but looking at everything we've got here on the screen, we've got quite a bit of different functions and roles here that graphic design serves. So with that said, what exactly does a graphic designer do? We know what graphic design does, but what's a designer do? Well, a designer serves several roles. Really, I'm going to go over three primary roles here. So a graphic designer is a communicator. Oftentimes the individual or organization that contracts you to do work as a graphic designer has a very specific message that they're trying to communicate. So your role as the designer would be to take that message and effectively communicate it. We talked about visual communication a few moments ago, so communicator should be really no surprise to you. So the second thing here that I wanted to mention is translator, because a graphic designer must take information from a client and translate that message into a picture or a message that's easy to understand by the audience. Now, the last thing I want to mention here, we already talked about graphic design being a solution, but graphic designers are problem solvers. Each individual project that you'll work on as a graphic designer has a very specific problem involved with that. So your role as a graphic designer will be to be the problem solver. And as the two terms up here imply, your role is also to be sort of a liaison between the client and the audience. So with that said, there are some very specific tools that a graphic designer has in their toolbox. Now, what exactly are these tools? Well, let's talk about those for just a moment. So, very specific tools that we use as designers. The first one I want to talk about is images. Now, images is a pretty broad term, and I'm lumping quite a few things into this category. This particular category could be illustrations, it could be photographs, it could be computer-generated images, things like logos or even photo manipulations. But imagery is one of the tools in the designer's toolbox to help them effectively communicate a message or solve a problem for their clients. The second tool that I'd like to mention is type or letter forms. You know, there's no easier way to communicate than the written word. As you can see, we're looking at tons of written words in this particular video, but in addition to listening to my voice, you can also be reading these words on screen. So the written word is a very effective way to communicate. Now, type or letter forms really is more than just the written word, as you'll see here in an upcoming lesson. But type can be a very, very effective tool for communicating a message or solving a problem. Now, the last tool that I want to mention to you here at this point is simply white space or negative space. Now, this is a tool that's so often neglected, or a mastery of this particular tool is not attained by a designer, but white space or negative space can be a very, very powerful thing in design. So now, for an example, you see we have a lot of things on our screen right here. But before I brought in all of this information here, we had a lot of negative space on our screen. We had a lot of this black area. But because of that, your attention was laser focused on one thing, and that's this question I was asking. So white space, or in this case negative space, can be a very powerful tool in the designer's toolbox. So let's go ahead and talk about one last question. I think that this is a question that really a lot of people don't understand. They think that graphic designers can pretty much do anything, but how exactly do graphic designers specialize? Because we do specialize. Oftentimes a graphic designer sort of gets thrown into the mix and has a variety of different types of projects come their way. Some of them they do really, really well at and enjoy. Some of them maybe they don't achieve that level of success at, or maybe they just don't enjoy quite as much. So there are actually several different ways to specialize as a graphic designer. Now I'm going to actually grab this and I'm going to move this up just a little bit here because we're going to need some room. So let me just move that question up, and I want to show you a very large list of different ways a graphic designer can specialize. You can see everything here from digital design to multimedia design, type design, nonprofit design. There's a lot of different job roles here, or really more specifically types of projects that a graphic designer can focus on and really specialize in. In looking at these, I can tell you my particular specialty as a graphic designer is more focused here on illustration. It's not that I don't have the ability to do things like package design or type design or digital design, but it's all about what I enjoy most, and really what I feel that I experience the most success with as a graphic designer. So oftentimes you'll see graphic designers specialize into one of these types of roles once they have entered the professional world. So now that we've taken just a moment to sort of really demystify some of the questions that surround graphic design, let's go ahead and move on to the next lesson.